Hello everybody and welcome to today's video where we're going to be covering custom events in Velocity. So we have a video titled very similar early in the course for custom paper events, and honestly the concept and the implementation actually is pretty much identical. So of course the idea with events is that you have things that happen on your server, or in this case on the network. The network then puts them in a nice little format like this where we can run the code that's inside of here, and also with some events you can change the outcome of them as well. So of course we have examples of events like we have the proxy initialize event here. When the proxy turns on, you have when players switch servers or join the network for the first time, or a chat message. All of those are built-in events, but what if you want a custom event? What if you want something to fire when something happens? So the reason custom events are so powerful is because other plugins can depend on your plugin, and when you send out those events, they can then listen to those events as well. So it's a great way. Your plugin doesn't have to be connected to theirs, but if they connect to yours, then they can listen to your custom events. And it's a very similar thing. For example, you know the NPC plugin called Citizens. When things happen with NPCs, they send out events, and as a developer, depending on their plugin, I can know when certain things happen, and then I can make my plugin act accordingly. But also, it's a really nice system to just use internally as well. For example, on paper, one of the events that I made was that when somebody clicks on a message in chat, of course, you have the option to make it run a custom command, but no option to make it run custom code. So what I did was I made it so that that command would trigger an event, and then inside of that event, you could run custom code. So it can be a great internal tool as well as external. But whatever your use case is, that doesn't matter to me that much. I just want to show you how to do it so that you can implement it yourself. Okay, so now let's go ahead and actually build out one of our events. So it's super simple to do. All we need to do is create a new class. Except we're going to create a data class. So head to Kotlin class and then choose data class. And then I'll just call mine custom event. Okay, now there's something a bit humorous I actually want to show you. So if I go ahead and pull up for you the Velocity docs. Now the Velocity docs are written in Java. Of course, we're using Kotlin. So this is what the Velocity docs suggests for making a custom event. Look at all of that code there, okay? So they've got a private message event where you can have the sender, the recipient, the message. That's all well and good. So what we'll do is we'll copy theirs just to show how it can be made. But of course, we're using Kotlin, and I wouldn't usually show you the docs like this, but I just want you to see the difference. So we're going to create a data class. And because we're using a data class, we can very simply go ahead and write. So we'll go on the next line and we'll do val. So we wanted a sender, which was a player. We wanted a recipient, which was a player, and of course we wanted a message, which was a string. And believe it or not, we are actually done. That is all you need to do for a custom event. Look at the difference, guys. In Java, look how much you need. So you need the variable in a declaration, and then it's got to be assigned, and then you've got the get functions. It's just crazy, isn't it, compared to what we've got here. So in Kotlin, that's so much cleaner, and that, guys, is how you would make a custom event. So what could we achieve with this event? Well, this is more of an informational event, okay? So you can't run any functions on it, for example. You can't change a whole lot. So this is more informational. So if I show you how to fire this, now we are going to need an instance of the server. So we'll do private val proxy server, just like that, except I'll call it server. And in the proxy initialization, of course, you can fire it anywhere you want, but you would just do server.eventManager.fire, and then you create a new instance of that event. So you do custom event, just like that. And then you'd pop in, of course, the data that you have that you want anybody who's listening to that event to have access to. So it would be those 3 data points. And that's how you would fire the event. And that, guys, is actually custom events. That's all it is. You just need to create a data class, pop in all the data that you want to store alongside the event, and then just go ahead and wherever you're going to fire it, just run the .fire function, create a new instance of it, and you're actually good to go. So let's see what this fire returns. You can see here we've got a completable future. Now, that might be a bit confusing, but you can understand that it means that it's going to complete in the future. So what it's going to do is it's going to track the status of that event firing. And then what you can do is use a .then accept. And if you just use the one with the body like that, and you maybe put event there. Okay, now this code here is going to run once that event has been shipped to all the listeners listening to that event, and then back to us. So you can see, for example, if I just go ahead and run event, I can get all my data back. So what does that mean? Why would we have this feature? Well, if you didn't need any of this, you could just make your life a lot easier. You could just run fire and forget. Doesn't matter. You can see it's probably going to return. There you go, void. Does not matter. But if you want something to happen once your event has been sent round to everybody, then this is what you would do. So let's think about a use case for that. Let's say we have some sort of, let's say somebody's trying to switch a server, okay? Maybe you have different plugins that don't want to allow that. Let's say, for example, if somebody's in combat, your combat plugin might say, excuse me, this guy can't switch server, he's currently been combat tagged. Or maybe your economy plugin says, excuse me, this guy hasn't paid his teleport fee. Maybe your region plugin says the player's in a no teleport zone. Maybe the anti-cheat says, this guy's moving a bit suspiciously, I probably wouldn't let him into this game. So you can see that whilst we currently have an informational event, we can actually make it so that all the listeners listening to the event has the power to alter it. And so how would we implement that? Well, we're going to use what's called a resulted event. And this is a term that just encompasses all events which have some sort of result. So how would this look? Well, I'll be honest, it's going to be a bit more code than we had with this one, because this is just an informational event, right? This doesn't do a whole lot for you. But you can have this event type where people can control what happens. So how would we implement that? Well, what we're going to do is implement a resulted event. And then you have a choice here between two main ones. You can either have a generic result, and this is essentially similar to kind of a Boolean almost. It's like a yes or a no, or just something simple to adjust. Or you could have a component result, and that is, it includes that, but also if you want to include some text alongside it. So a use case for that, for example, might be, say you're kicking somebody, and you want to include a component as to why they've been kicked, something like that. So we'll use a generic one. So just generic result like that. And then now we need a class body, so we'll go ahead and open that. And you'll see we'll have a couple things to implement just like that. Okay, so let's actually make this look normal and not horrible. So what are we going to do here? And how does this work? So you can see we've implemented resulted event, and so now we're being forced to add two functions. So we need a way for other people to be able to get the current result, and a way for other people to be able to set the current result. And so, of course, for that, we're going to need a current result. So what we'll do is we'll create a private var, and we'll do result, and we'll probably specify the type here just to help everybody out, and we'll do equals generic result, and you can choose here whether it's allowed or denied by default. So I will do allowed. Now, I realize this kind of violates Kotlin a bit, right? Because Kotlin kind of removes all the getters and setters in Java. And that's true. But in this instance, unfortunately, these methods are forced upon us. And so we do have to kind of go back to our old Java ways just a little bit. So what we're going to do in the get result is we're going to do a nice fancy little thing. So just like this, we can go ahead and remove the body, and we can do equals result. And that's just using some fancy Kotlin to say, instead of doing return result, we're effectively doing return result just here. Okay, set result is not too different. So all we're going to do is, well, firstly, we're going to remove that nullable because we're not going to allow it to be null in here. And what we'll do is this dot result equals result. Just like that. And there you go, guys. So we have complied with the restrictions put on us by generic results. And so that should be spot on there. So now we know that other people who are listening to this event have control to be able to change this result. And by the way, also, if you want to make it so they can change other data, then you can do that. But the use case is mostly for the results. So now any other plugin listening to our event can go ahead and change this. So it's not going to make a whole lot of difference unless we actually then act on that decision. So now that's a slight lie because, you know, other plugins will base their stuff on the decision of other plugins before them. But of course, we get the final say, and we get the final say because we have the completable future, which fires after everybody has had their say. So what we can do is go ahead and do, in here, for example, we could do if event dot result. There you go. And then you can get dot is allowed, which, as I said, was the true or false, and that's just a generic result. It's kind of like is cancelled in paper. That's exactly what it's like, actually. So they can obviously change that. So the is allowed, and so if it's allowed, then why don't we go ahead and do whatever it is we want it to do. And if it isn't, then of course, well, we don't even need anything there, do we? We would just not do anything, and that's about it. And of course, other plugins would listen to your events super easily by doing function and custom event, custom event, just like that. And so they would listen to your event, and then they could do, for example, event.result equals, and then they would do generic result dot allowed or denied. So for example, if we denied this, then this would say denied in here, and so this wouldn't get in this block and it wouldn't run. And guys, that is custom events. So we started with a kind of an informational event, right? And that was just this bit of code here without all of this fancy stuff. And that's honestly what 50% of events are, just informational events, you know? Somebody joined, somebody did XYZ. But also events are a really good way for plugins to communicate the behavior of certain things on the server between each other, and that's kind of how the result system works. So just think of it this way: you have an informational event, which is just a normal data class, but if you want anybody to have a say on what happens to your plugin, then you use a resulted event, and then all you do is you make sure that when you actually fire your custom event, you look at what the result of it is, and then you act accordingly, and it's that simple. So guys, that's custom events. I hope you understood the concept there. Very similar to paper, just a bit more syntax, although definitely less writing, which is nice. So if you need any help implementing this, please come join our Discord and we'd be more than happy to help. But otherwise guys, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.